It's been a while. Give me one guess why. Been smoking the weed again. But I am again 4 or 5 days off, and happy for it. Of course, it's not a month or a year or weeks even, but it's something, and I'm happy about it. And one thing I've realized, one of the reasons that it's been so hard, is I've never addressed my nicotine addiction. Because that's almost what happens every single time. As soon as I stop smoking cannabis, my nicotine withdrawals always also come back. Our cravings, I should say. They're not really withdrawals, because it's been almost a year. I think 300 and something days. I actually, since I'm getting better at editing, I'll put that up on the screen. How long it's been, and I'll probably put links to the apps that I use that keeps track of my days. But yes, I've realized that, yeah, I have never really addressed my nicotine addiction, and that was probably one of my first and strongest addictions. And really, they both came up at the same time, my cannabis and my nicotine addiction, around the same time. Even though I actually know the nicotine came first. That one came first. The earliest I remember the compulsion being is probably around sixth grade. And now thinking back to it, that was one of the most tumultuous times in my life. So yeah, it makes sense that that's when it started. And again, I haven't really done this processing, so we're gonna do this together about just my nicotine, and hopefully this helps people because nicotine addiction isn't talked about enough. I know it's getting more mainstream with the rise of the vaping, but it's still a lot of people still consider it a habit when really it's drug addiction, plain and simple. And we're watching a lot of young people get right into that very strong, very uh, insidious addiction. Because again, it is very much drug addiction. That's really all it is. But yes, so sixth grade, I remember in North Carolina visiting my grandmother and my uncle, and he kept his cigarettes outside, and I spent all summer going out and stealing cigarettes and smoking whenever I could. It was usually at least once or twice a day. And I think it took him a while to figure it out, but I do remember, I think he confronted me or he found, the butts I was trying to hide, or I don't really remember all the exact details. But what I do remember is the compulsion, especially in sixth grade, and I was the good child, usually stayed out of trouble for the most part, but and especially around my grandmother, I really didn't want her to be disappointed in me, but I wanted to smoke. Something about it, I didn't know what it was, but I knew because after that first couple tries, I'm like, oh yeah, like and even with the coughing and the bad smell and all that, um, I was still like I still wanted to smoke because again, nicotine is a very powerful drug. And that's what we're going to talk about again today. Yeah, so sixth grade, that's when I can remember really getting into the compulsion. And then from that point on, whoever had cigarettes, whoever I was around, I was in the regular practice of stealing however many cigarettes I thought I can get away with, and then finding ways sneaking outside and smoking those. And I remember it distinctly. By the time oh no, so actually before I really started getting to that part, I would smoke black and milds with older members of my family, and the big thing in my family and amongst quite a few black folks at the time, at least in my circle, we would roll or take out some of the black and mild tobacco and then mix in weed. So that was one of my first real, especially yeah, because back then it was usually really bad weed. So yeah, you kind of wanted to mix it in with stuff. And that was one of my some of my first experiences with cannabis is smoking with my older family members when I was around middle school, and quite often, mixed with tobacco smoke, and even when it wasn't with the in black and miles, most of the time it was blunts, which are rolled with are made with tobacco products and tobacco paper, and contain quite a bit of nicotine in and of themselves. which is something that folks might, should think about, because I know quite a few people who don't smoke cigarettes but are obsessed with blunts, and I think quite a bit of it has to do with the nicotine in the papers themselves. But that's for a different time. That's just me wondering if there's a connection. I'm sure there's some for some people, because again, nicotine is a very powerful drug, and if you're not thinking of it like a drug, there's a good chance you might be a drug addict and not realize it. So yes, and that's one thing I've realized, because as soon as I stop smoking cannabis, I just really want to smoke anything, and I start thinking absurd thoughts. Again, I haven't spoken almost a year, and almost never have cravings anymore. Like every once in a while, one might pop in. But when I stop smoking cannabis, it's a guarantee I'm going to be thinking about smoking cigarettes and cannabis, and because I just want to smoke, because some of my earliest memories were of me smoking. And before I knew what addiction was, to me, in my brain, it was, I just want to smoke. I want to breathe in fire and smoke and breathe out that smoke. To the point where I distinctly remember there were times, especially since, again, I would have to hide my smoking, and if I was in a position where I couldn't see the smoke, it almost seemed pointless to me, because I wanted to see that smoke. I wanted to, I don't know, feel like a man, feel like the older boys, smoking. So this is where some of my introductions into nicotine. But again, when I was getting into it, I didn't think of it as a drug. It was a nasty habit, because again, that's how it was presented by and large in media and in movies, just a nasty habit, when in reality it's drug addiction. And nicotine happens to be one of the most addictive drugs known to man, specifically because, or it's from what I've read, specifically because of how fast it leaves your body. Because as soon as you put out a cigarette, the nicotine starts leaving your bloodstream very rapidly, which is why apparently people tend to chain smoke. I know I was one of those. As soon as I would put out a cigarette, quite especially if I was drinking, oh yeah, I was chain smoking, because I just wanted to keep putting that nicotine into my body, and I was so accustomed to the drug that I just constantly needed it, which is usually how most drug addictions go. Start out with just a little bit, that's all you need, and quite quickly it escalates, as these things do. So going back to middle school. So yeah, I distinctly remember that, so it started out with specifically blunts, because I would get my older friends and older family members to buy me blunts and Black and Milds. Or I would just, they would give them to me if I asked. And, usually back then, one Black and Mild would last me, because it's a full-blown cigar, and I was in middle school. I wasn't as accustomed to smoking as I was in my later years. By 9th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, because it had to be after my uncle moved out, because at that point I was smoking in my room. So it had to be about 9th grade. By then I was a full-blown smoker every single day. I rode the bus to school, the city bus, not the school bus. So I would have plenty of opportunities, and there was a few office buildings that I would pass on the way home. So I got into the habit of raiding the cigarette or the ashtrays, the outside ashtrays for the office buildings, taking those home, emptying them out, and smoking them in a foil pipe. And not only that, the fun part. Remember, if some of you have watched my other videos, remember that I had a heart attack in February. So yes, by middle school, early high school, I was already an everyday smoker. I'm 9th grade, so again, I would take those cigarette butts, empty them, smoke them out of a foil pipe. And most of the time, because it was easier to get tobacco than it was to get lighters, so I would use candles, dip pencils into the wax, light the pencil and then use that to smoke the tobacco out of my foil pipe. Tobacco that, again, I got from cigarette butts outside of office buildings. This is what addiction looks like. This is what addiction looks like. Um, and again, back then, I didn't think of it like that. It was a compulsion. I knew I just needed to smoke. Because again, I didn't think that there was an addiction. But again, I didn't even try to stop. It wasn't until, of course, I tried to stop after high school that I realized that there was a problem. Because until then, I had no desire to stop. And luckily, I shouldn't say luckily, but the picking the cigarette butts out of the office, building ashtrays, that lasted probably about 2.5 years before I realized I could just stand outside of a liquor store and I would just wait until I saw somebody who looked a little, and then ask them to just buy me things or buy me a pack of cigarettes, buy me Black and Milds, and sometimes I would have to stand out there for an hour. A lot of times just afraid to ask, but then I would wait, and usually somebody would kind of give you the look, probably because they used to be in that same situation, waiting outside trying to find somebody to buy them beer, and which I wasn't asking for alcohol, I was just asking for cigarettes. But then by sophomore or junior year, I had friends that could just buy me whatever I wanted, so I didn't have to do that anymore. So I always just had a pack of cigarettes on me. And I wasn't one of those kids that smoked outside of school. Almost none of my friends knew that I smoked. It was something I kept something I guarded very close to me. Because I wasn't proud of it. It wasn't something I was doing to be cool. I was doing it because I was addicted to nicotine. And again, I considered myself, one of the good kids. Especially by high school, I was in the honors program and AP classes, blah, 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 marching band, yada, 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 all that stuff. But I was still, just waiting to get to that second bus stop. Because again, I wouldn't just go outside of school. I took the city bus. So I would take the first bus, and that would let me off far away from school. And as soon as I got off that bus, I would light up. Because there was a very little chance I would see anybody that I knew by the time I got to my second stop. And again, because I didn't think it was cool. I didn't think it was the thing to do. I never thought smoking was cool. I just had a compulsion, and I didn't know what to do with it. And again, I didn't even think of it as a compulsion. I just knew I wanted to smoke. And it wasn't until after high school, or probably around senior year, was the first time I tried to stop. And again, by then I had already been an everyday smoker for 4 or 5 years, at least. Messing around with nicotine, for at least 8 years by that point. 7, 8, yeah, because I was pretty young when I first stole my first cigarette. But yeah, so it's something I know I needed to go over. It's something I never really discussed, and it took me a long time. And really, the only reason I was ever able to quit, and I'll put a link down in the description, which I had a very good book, which I would strongly recommend if you were trying to quit. Alan Carr's Easy Way to Quit Smoking. And what's funny is the only reason I even read that book is because I had a roommate. Shout out to Bear. If he came into my room, threw me the rest of his pack of cigarettes, and said he read a book that made him want to quit. And I started reading the book only so I can make fun of him, because I thought, how in the world can a book help you quit? I was wrong. That book was amazing. And to this day, even though I've started up many times and had to quit many times, it was only because of that book that I feel that I was ever able to quit. And partly because it broke it down as drug addiction. Not as a nasty habit, but just as drug addiction, and it treated it like an addiction. And I've used quite a few of the things I learned from that book in my other addictions. So again, I will put a description down, or a link down in the description. And full disclosure, every single person I've given this book to, every single one that has actually read the book, has quit. The proof is in the pudding. So again, and I'm not getting paid for this, or maybe, I don't know. I think I have an affiliate link thing, so it might be an affiliate link. I don't know. Why not? If you're gonna click on it, why not give me 5 cents? I don't know. I got bills. Anyway, so again, why was this important? Because today I was going to make a video about why I haven't been making videos. But I realized that there was a strong connection between my cannabis and my nicotine because, again, they both came up at the same time. And even a good portion of the time that I'm smoking cannabis, especially on this last little stint in between the last video and this video, a lot of times it happens exactly like the nicotine. Like, I'll roll a blunt, and specifically I roll blunts because I like the act of smoking. Or well, at least I've convinced myself that I like the act of smoking because those things develop in my brain at a very young age. And I'm just now realizing that I never had that conversation with my young self, which I've been doing with all my other addictions, with my depression, my anxiety. They're all different versions of Alex that I've been addressing. But I never addressed the one who was sneaking out to go get cigarettes, from office building ashtrays, who was sneaking out to go stand outside of liquor stores to hope that somebody would buy me cigarettes. I've never talked to that Alex, and I realized, as soon as I stopped I stopped cannabis, that Alex takes the driver's seat, in small ways, because luckily I'm able to realize exactly what's happening, and now, little by little, only again because I'm having these moments of processing, of meditation, of deep reflection. And again, and the more I know myself, the more I'm able to pick these things out and get to the root and really think about when the first time I felt certain feelings or compulsions or ideas, when they formed. And again, usually it's in childhood. And at that time, it makes perfect sense for you. And a lot of times your coping mechanisms are exactly what you needed at that time. But none of those things serve me. But I still have a lot of those things because I never addressed them. And that's what I'm doing now. And again, a lot of these things I completely forgot about until I really just sat down and like I'm doing it right now. Like even just I always remembered the going through the ashtrays, but until I started talking now, I completely forgot that I used to stand outside of the liquor store. And one in particular that was, right up the street from my house. And I've been going to them since I was a child. And and just the shame. Now I'm talking about just the nervousness and the shame and the embarrassment of just standing out there and even just going through those ashtrays. Like, I didn't feel good about myself doing what I was doing. Like, it seemed silly and absurd, and the anxiety that I would have, hoping that nobody would come out while I was doing this, or wondering if there were cameras that were watching me. All these feelings that were arising when I'm already in middle school and high school, when your emotions are already all over the place if you're not even dealing with addiction. So I knew I really needed to process all this, because again, I concentrated so much on my cannabis addiction and my alcohol addiction, and never really addressed my nicotine addiction. Never talked to that version of Alex that felt the need, because again, my brain developed on nicotine, and it's something that I really needed to address, that I hadn't up until now in any meaningful way. But that was the point of this video, and I am happy I made it. It looks like I'm about 20 minutes in, so I think that's the perfect amount. I think I've said everything that I needed to say at this point, because again, I realized there was a strong connection between me wanting to quit cannabis and nicotine, and my compulsion to just smoke, because again, that's what my brain used to think that I wanted to do, even though it was really just drug addiction. In my young adolescent brain, I just wanted to smoke, which is what my thought process tends to go to now whenever I stop smoking cannabis. Is I just want to smoke something. I start thinking about buying a pack of cigarettes or herbal cigarettes or cloves or just anything just to breathe in fire and feel that suffocation, because that's just a feeling that I was used to. But I don't want that anymore. And even though it's been 5 or 6 days, I'm still coughing up black stuff because, again, I have just done terrible things to my lungs. And even just smoking weed, I can't smoke without coughing up a lung. It doesn't matter. Because, again, I did terrible, terrible things. Again, foil pipes lit with pencils dipped in candle wax. No wonder I had a heart attack. And there's a good chance that I'll pray that I don't get lung cancer, but I've done enough things to my lungs that it would not surprise me. But that's a problem for down the road, if it ever becomes a problem. It's just one more reason for me not to smoke cannabis, not to smoke cigarettes, not to smoke anything. Get out there in nature, breathe some fresh air. That's what I need to start doing more, which I have been. Oh, with my new job, yes. Oh, I'll make a video because I have got a new job. A wonderful job. Doing something amazing for people that I deeply care about. But that'll be another video. Because today I needed to talk about my nicotine. And even just talking already and realizing the connection, even just over these last few days, have made the cravings almost completely disappear for cannabis, because again I there is a compulsion and neural pathways that formed long ago in my childhood that I hadn't addressed, but I did today. In some small way, there's still going to be a lot of work that I'm going to have to do off camera, quite a bit of meditation, quite a bit of work that I still have to do and will probably always have to do, because it will probably pop up in ways that I won't expect. But it'll be challenges that I am willing to take on, that I have to take on if I want to keep breathing. And I would like to keep breathing, which is a beautiful thing, because for a long time I did not want to keep breathing or wake up or do anything, but I do now. And today I did something. I did one small step. Even though I was resisting it for quite a bit, but here I am. Here we are. And here you are listening to me talk about this, which means you're probably trying to do better. And every step counts. Every single step counts, no matter how small it feels, at least for me. And I'm sure it's the same for you, for everybody. Even though it doesn't seem like it. Every step counts. And this was a step in the right direction. And I was going to say I hoped that I'm going to be more consistent with my videos, but no, I will be. Maybe. Should be. And again, if something happens again, I'm going to be easy with myself, because beating myself up, in my experience, has only compounded the problems. So, you should see a video from me very soon after this one. You should. And if not, there's probably a good reason, or a bad reason, or no reason at all. But I want to keep doing this. That is the thing. And cannabis was stopping that. And I realized to stop the cannabis, I really needed to address my nicotine addiction. So here we are, doing that. And I think that will be the end of the video, because I am getting hungry, and I realize this is, very much long enough. But again, this isn't just about a video. This is about me processing. So the video needed to be as long as it needed to be. And I think it's done. So, with that being said, thank you for watching. I hope you got something from this. I hope maybe if something resonated with you, or you see somebody maybe in the same predicament, or you realizing some of your habits or behaviors on anything. It doesn't just have to be nicotine, because addiction is addiction. It just so happens that nicotine is a very addictive drug. And it's not an addiction just for the sake of addiction, or to, like maybe, anyway. I hope this helped. It helped. I hope this helped you, because it helped me quite a bit. I feel really good. And I'm just happy to make a video again. Very happy, because this is what I want to do. I want to help people. And I know I can do it this way. And it's not that hard. I just have to stop smoking weed, because I don't want to do anything when I'm smoking weed. Nothing. Even video games are hard for me to keep my focus on. I'd rather just put on a YouTube video and just veg and not do anything and not get anything done. And I'm done not doing anything. So, thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. And I hope this finds you well. Bye.